6:23 a.m., September 3rd, 1944. At the edge of a collapsed bridge in northern Italy, Lieutenant General Adrian Carton de Wiart stood still. He couldn't see out of one eye. He had lost one hand. There was shrapnel in his skull, in his hip, in his leg, in his ankle, in both ears. He turned to the 23-year-old officer standing beside him and said, "Objectively speaking, this is quite a fine morning." He had been shot 11 times across 3 wars. He had survived 2 plane crashes. He had escaped from a prisoner of war camp by tunneling out with his one remaining hand. When a field surgeon refused to amputate his fingers, he had bitten them off himself. And now, standing at that bridge, watching 400 German soldiers take position on the other side, Adrian Carton de Wiart did what he always did. He picked up his rifle and started moving forward. Before we get into the story, I want to ask you something. Has there ever been a moment in your life when you felt like nothing could stop you? Not just felt it, actually believed it. That no matter how many times you got hit, no matter how many times you fell, you would get back up and keep going. Most people just feel that. Adrian Carton de Wiart proved it for 40 years. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Adrian Carton de Wiart was born in Brussels in 1880. Belgian father, Irish mother, a wealthy family, a good education, but young Adrian had one thing on his mind: fighting. At 18, he walked away from his law studies at Oxford. The Boer War had started. He was desperate to get to South Africa. His family said no. Adrian didn't even care. He listed his age as 21 and enlisted in the British Army. He was 18 years old. In South Africa, he was shot for the first time, in the stomach. The doctors said he wouldn't survive. Carton de Wiart survived and wanted more. Before I go further, I need to tell you something. To understand Adrian Carton de Wiart, you first have to accept one thing. This man did not feel pain the way other people feel pain. This isn't an exaggeration. This is the truth. He said it himself. He wrote it in his own autobiography. "I enjoyed the war," he said, a shameful admission, but true. When World War I began, Carton de Wiart was 34 years old, and he was entering the happiest period of his life, Belgium. In the early days, he was shot through the hand and the face. He lost his left eye. The doctors said they could save the eye, but he'd need to stay in hospital for a long time. Carton de Wiart walked out of the hospital without a second thought about his eye and went back to the front. Now wait, when I say he lost his eye, he actually removed it himself because he didn't want to wait. Wieltje, Belgium. Carton de Wiart was moving between trenches when he was shot again. Through the skull. Shrapnel. It didn't reach his brain, but it stayed inside his skull. It would stay there for the rest of his life. In the years that followed, he kept getting shot. Through the hip, the leg, the ankle, the ear again. Every time he went to hospital, every time he came back before his leave was up, his commanders didn't know what to do with him. They wrote in their reports, "This man doesn't die, he is immortal." Then came his left hand. A piece of shrapnel. This time the hand had to go. The field surgeon was preparing for the amputation. Carton de Wiart didn't ask questions. He just looked and waited for the surgeon to finish his work. But before that, something happened. His fingers had been completely crushed. While the surgeon was preparing for the amputation, Carton de Wiart looked at his own fingers and bit them off, one by one. I need to stop here because this actually happened. It is documented. In his own words, with his teeth, his own fingers. By the end of World War I, he had been shot 8 times in total. Every time, he survived. Every time he came back. At the war's end, he received dozens of medals, including the Victoria Cross. And when peace came, he wasn't happy at all. Carton de Wiart didn't like peace. Strange, but true. He moved to Poland on an inter-army posting. He hunted, he fished, he shot ducks, and he waited for World War II to begin. The war started. Carton de Wiart was 59 years old, one eye gone, one hand gone, shrapnel in his skull that had been there for 8 years, and he was called back to duty. Nobody said no to him, because nobody could. He was immortal. Norway, 1940. He fought against German forces at Namsos. He filed a report from the battlefield. The report said, "Everything here is a complete mess. Send more men." A plane crash. Off the coast of Libya, he fell into the Mediterranean. He was 61 years old, one eye gone, one hand gone, shrapnel in his skull. He hit the water and went under. When he surfaced, 5 other men were in the water around him. No life rafts. The nearest shore was miles away. Carton de Wiart started swimming, because there was no other option left. All 5 men were saved. Shortly after, a second plane crash, this time off the coast of Sicily, into the Mediterranean again. He swam again, saved himself again. 2 plane crashes, sinking in the Mediterranean twice. What was Carton de Wiart's response? He wrote in his report, "Swimming is quite pleasant at this time of year." Late 1941, he was captured in Italy, a 61-year-old British general. But anyone who knew Carton de Wiart knew a prisoner of war camp wasn't an obstacle for him. It was a puzzle. In the Italian camp, he began digging a tunnel with the other officers, with one hand, for months. In 1943, the tunnel was complete. 8 officers escaped, Carton de Wiart among them. But the escape didn't last long. A few days later, they were caught. Carton de Wiart went back to the camp, and when he got back, he started digging another tunnel. Let me ask you something. What do you think the Italian guards were feeling at this point? They wrote reports about Carton de Wiart. "This man never stops," they wrote. "We don't know how to keep him. Perhaps it would be better to just let him go." 1943, Italy surrendered. Carton de Wiart was released. But for him, this wasn't an ordinary release. Churchill sent him directly to China as special envoy for negotiations with Chiang Kai-shek. 63 years old, one eye gone, one hand gone, and a brand new mission. September 3rd, 1944, northern Italy. Let's go back to that collapsed bridge. Carton de Wiart looked at the young officer beside him. The officer was trembling, whether from fear or excitement, it was hard to say. 400 German soldiers had taken position on the other side. The bridge had collapsed. There was no way across. "What are we going to do, sir?" said the young officer. Carton de Wiart looked at the bridge, then looked at the water, then looked at the German positions. "I don't see what the problem is," he said. "There's a bridge, a bit damaged, but it's there. And on the other side are people we need to get past. This isn't a problem, this is a plan." And he walked across the collapsed bridge, keeping his balance with one hand, German bullets whistling around him. The young officer looked behind him, then looked at Carton de Wiart and started following. The most beautiful thing about this story is this. Carton de Wiart never told this scene himself. The ones who told it were the others, the officers who were there, years later. "He crossed that bridge," they said, "like he was going on a picnic." The war ended. Carton de Wiart retired. He moved to Ceylon, tended his garden, went fishing, wrote his autobiography. He called it Happy Odyssey. On the last page he wrote, "I am grateful for everything the war gave me. Every wound, every broken bone, every piece of shrapnel. They didn't kill me, they only made me want more." He died in 1963, 83 years old, in Ceylon, in his garden, quietly. His obituary was one paragraph. It mentioned his name, his rank, his medals. But some things it didn't mention. It didn't mention 11 bullets. It didn't mention 2 plane crashes. It didn't mention biting off his own fingers. It didn't mention the tunnel dug with one hand. It didn't mention walking across a collapsed bridge. But right now, you know, and that matters. Think about this for a moment. What was Adrian Carton de Wiart's secret? It wasn't a special power. It wasn't special training. It was just one thing: getting up every time he fell, keeping going every time he got hit, looking at every obstacle and saying, "I don't see what the problem is." What about you? Is there something in your life that has knocked you down again and again, but you're still standing? Like Carton de Wiart, you fell, you got up, you kept going. Tell me in the comments, if this story hit you, hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube to push this story out to more people who need to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Every day we bring stories like this back from the forgotten corners of history. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're the reason they will be.